My name is Lisa Taylor. I'm a journalism professor at Ryerson University in Toronto.
And can you give a brief overview of your career?
Sure. I've had a really great career. I feel super fortunate because I've been both a journalist and I've been a lawyer. I didn't get the easiest start on that because even in the 80s, if you can believe it, I had parents who were saying, oh, journalism's a dying industry, you shouldn't do that. As a result, I have an undergrad degree in public relations, and I've never practiced public relations. I still made my way into journalism as a freelancer, and then spent roughly 15 years with CBC. Partway through that, I took a little side trip and went to law school. And there's so much overlap between people who want to be journalists and people who want to be lawyers, because the strengths and I think the kind of intellectual and character attributes people bring to the table are so similar in both professions.
What are some of the main rights and responsibilities which student journalists in high school should be keeping in mind?
Absolutely. Okay, so the key responsibilities, I think I can get them down to kind of two categories. One, don't defame someone, just don't defame someone, okay? So a defamatory statement is something that would make the public at large think less of someone as a result of hearing that statement. And there are reasons why we defame people, matters like truth or because something is before the courts, but we have to have a reason in order to be safe. And second, and I say this even speaking as a lawyer, I would say that sometimes meeting your legal threshold as a journalist is not enough. You also have to think about your ethical threshold. So right now, if we saw two people outside on the lawn passed out and intoxicated, and maybe in a really vulnerable place, there is no legal prohibition on videotaping those individuals. None whatsoever. They are in a public place with no reasonable expectation of privacy. So that's fine, we're legally clear. Then we have to stop and say, is that ethical? Is that fair? Is that right? So when you think about your responsibilities, I would suggest thinking not just about your legal responsibilities, but also your ethical responsibilities. And sometimes we might show those people. So there may be pressing circumstances that justify it, like two police officers walked by just a moment before and did nothing, even though the people looked like they may be in danger. Then we might want to show them because we're trying to show a bigger truth, which is that the police aren't doing enough to look after people who are in danger. But we have to think about why we're going to kind of violate their ethical privacy interests. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, and it kind of is the flip side of that kind of be respectful and know your space, is also be assertive and know your space. So let's come back to this hypothetical. If the police are dealing with a matter that is in front of you, and again, out in public, or campus security is dealing with it, if you're not in the way and you're not impeding anything, when security looks at you and says, no, put your camera down and walk away, it is your right to say, no, I'm a journalist and I'm doing my job and I'm filming this and I'm not in your way. If I am in your way, let me know. I can stand back or stand somewhere different, but no, this is my right under 2B of the Charter. So having people in public tell you to not record something, not take a picture of something, as journalists, we all have to very respectfully say, yeah, this is a public meeting and I think it's a matter of public interest, so I am going to report on it.
Oftentimes, high school student publications are heavily censored and are not allowed to produce content which would show the school in a negative light. So on that topic, do students have a legal right or an ethical right to publish that content, or is that something which you would recommend they avoid doing?
I know they have a legal right and they have an ethical right. Again, assuming that their story is well sourced and it's verified, assuming that we have all those kind of boxes ticked that tell us we're doing good journalism, I would suggest that students have an incredible ethical obligation to tell stories even if they don't paint a school in a flattering light. In particular, if we're talking about public school, we're talking about public funds, and we need to scrutinize all exercises of government power, and we also need to scrutinize the use of public funds to make sure that money is being spent reasonably. Students also, I think student journalists have a right to look out for their fellow student, and if something is going on in the school that is not positive, that it's their obligation to kind of shine a bright light on that and to let people know that there is a problem. So sometimes I realize that the battle becomes, if you want to keep on publishing stories like this, we're not going to let you publish. And that's when I would suggest a little bit of kind of journalistic activism. A school can't stop you from running your own independent WordPress site. Or perhaps, maybe the other way around it is, okay, so we won't publish this story, but the editor of the paper is going to publish an editorial saying, you know, this week it came to our publication's attention that there's some questionable matters, say, you know, regarding how school trips are funded here at our school. But the principal, Jane Smith, has told us we can't publish that, and you readers should know that we do have information that's of vital importance to you, and we cannot tell you what it is. So even if you can't tell the story, you can tell people that you're being censored. And when you do that, I would suggest that that's a story that the mainstream media would pick up in a heartbeat.
What can high school teachers be doing to support female identifying and non-binary student journalists?
Journalism is a field that really needs diversity. I'm here, when students get to undergrad, I'm fond of saying that the less you feel you may belong here, for whatever reason, for whatever personal characteristic that may be, you know, your background, gender identity, faith, socioeconomic status, if there's anything around those characteristics that makes you feel like you don't belong, journalism needs you more than journalism needs anyone else. Because it's only with the diversity of journalists that we'll really get great at telling a diversity of stories. I think that high school teachers and high school journalism advisors can do an incredible service to the community and to democracy if they take that extra step and look to see who in their class or who in their group might have a point of entry into stories that are being poorly told or not told at all, and encouraging or finding ways to help bring those students into the journalism fold.
And what can they be doing to bring those students into the journalism fold? What techniques can they be using?
I would start with something as simple as asking if they might be interested, talking to them about the range of roles that they can fill, because sometimes I think people think about journalism as being solely what you're doing right here, right now, which is interviewing on camera, and they don't want to be on camera, or they hate the sound of their voice, or they're worried about talking to experts, but that there are so many different jobs that they can do within journalism. So it's kind of one, showing them the breadth of that, and then two, explaining, just as I hope I have, why diversity matters in journalism, that until we kind of broaden the tent and ensure that all people in our society are reflected in journalism, journalism is still only going to do an okay job of looking at issues that are underreported or misreported. My name is Lisa Taylor, and this has been On the Record, a video series by the Canadian Youth Journalism Project.